Hey gang, this is Andy over at Falco Canine Live. We are live here in Brea, California, and I have a great show for you as we are have taken the time to kind of recreate what we're doing here on the Falco Canine Academy Facebook page and what we're doing in regard to Facebook Live. We've had the Dog News Live, which we're going to bring back fairly soon, but been creating some other projects and things in the meantime to just make sure that we get it right and we get the information that you want and the people on camera that you want to hear from. So we're busy putting that stuff together. One interesting note that you may find interesting, and the only reason I'm telling you this is because it is dog related, in that I would normally be in the studio behind me where you see that green screen and the other tripods and that kind of stuff. But I don't know what happened last night, but my dog decided to have a party with the equipment and got tangled up in the cords, I guess, and broke the webcam that I would normally be using to broadcast from. So please apologize for the different view here that I would normally have, which would be a little bit more professional. But having a dog, these things happen. And so what I want to do is introduce my guest, and Barbara McLean. She's a friend of mine who has been in the dog shelter business for quite some time. She has a very interesting story. And she also has a new program that we're going to be talking about. And I want to bring Barbara on right now to first say hi to Barbara. There you are. How are you? Where are you at?
Hi, Andy. I'm in upstate New York, in Corning, New York.
Oh, awesome. I got to get there. I've only kind of driven through New York once or twice, but I got to see what that's all about out there. That's one of my things that I definitely have to do in the near future. So first, Barbara, who are you? Why are we even here listening to you? What's your experience in regard to shelters?
Great question. So I am the former executive director of two animal welfare organizations, one an animal shelter here in upstate New York, and also I was the executive director of the Association of Shelter Veterinarians. And I did those two positions for just a little over 8 years. So yeah, so that's been my experience in animal welfare.
So you have a program, I can see it behind you there, called Shelters Kids Club Program. What is that, and how does it help her create interest in shelters?
So as I mentioned, my experience in animal welfare, and my background previous to that, I've also been an educator for, gosh, going on, I hate to say it, 32 years, and formally, professionally, and even more before that. And so this project, Shelter Kids Club, is really a way for me to bring together two of my passions, and education and working with animal shelters and rescue organizations. So what it is, it's a digital magazine, and it is published 4 times a year. We work with animal shelters, rescue groups, and the animal shelters can be nonprofit, they can be municipal, you name it. And what we do is we help them with their humane education programs. So it could be somebody, in their organization already has a very robust program, and they're doing, birthday parties, and they're doing school visits, and they're doing tours, and they're doing summer camps and all sorts of things. But they're thinking about, what can we do next? How can we continue to grow our program? And how can we continue to have contact with the kids that we see maybe only once or twice? How can we have more of a relationship with them and a continued dialogue? So this is a great way to do that, by offering the magazine through a membership site that we would manage for you, connect it with your website at your shelter. It's also a great program for those organizations that may either have never had a humane education program but are wanting to start one. And so it's a great way to do that, as well as those programs who maybe used to have one, and either the funding got cut or other priorities came up, and they're wanting to sort of get back into it. So again, this is a really nice way to get them started.
What kind of articles, what type of training is inside the magazine? What would they find inside those pages?
So our first issue that just has come out this winter, because we just launched the magazine last month. In that one, it's each each issue will have a different theme. And so this first theme was on working dogs. And so you might actually find an article in there of somebody who looks really familiar. So we have an ongoing article is what we're calling Author's Corner. And so we will have a little blurb about a book that is related to the theme of that particular issue. And so in the Working Dogs issue, we were able to get Andy and his son, who have written a book about police dog recruit dog. And so we featured them in this past issue, which was really fun. And so we always have an author's corner. We do a thing where kids can write in, email in questions that have to do with either behavior issues, or it could be medical issues that they're seeing with their own pet, or just questions they have about, pets to do with either of those topics. And they can write in, and that could be selected and featured in the magazine. And then we have a number of experts who we rely on to help answer those questions, but we just called all of those people Dr. V. And so Dr. V will respond back to the kids with an answer. We also have for each of the shelters, because it's a white label magazine. And what I mean by that is that on the cover page of the magazine, and you'll see right behind me, this is sort of a sample one, that the organization's logo will appear right on the front cover. So it looks like it's coming directly from that shelter or organization.
That's great.
And yeah, so it's branded for them. And then on the back cover, we work with the organization to find out, what's coming up that's kid friendly, family friendly, that you want to really promote, that's coming up in the next quarter time period, that you want to have featured. So that will also be customized on the back cover, as well as the first couple of pages. We will put in photos that the organization will send to us, pictures of kids. Oftentimes kids will do things like have a lemonade stand, and they will get the money from the lemonade stand and then bring it into the shelter to donate it, or they'll bring in gifts that they've collected from their friends. So instead of, they might have a birthday party, but instead of getting birthday gifts from their friends, they'll get donations from their friends and then bring that into the shelter. And so shelters will typically take pictures of those kids doing that and then put them on their Facebook page or what have you. But this is just another way to promote those kids and the great work that they're doing. Kids also.
Well, I'm sorry. I was going to say that's kind of the Facebook model that people love seeing themselves, and then it'll encourage other people to do the same thing.
Exactly. And so, and the kids too, I know, when I worked as executive director of a shelter here, that, we would get a lot of kids who love doing like artwork and sending in pictures of, like, here's a picture of my, my dog or my cat, and they're just so cute and precious, and they'll send in little, notes to the shelter and things like that. So we'll also feature some of those things as well, or kids that have been, part of a family that's adopted recently. So, we want to be able to feature these great things that kids are doing with the particular organizations.
Awesome. I like it a lot. I was happy to be a part of it too. And we just relaunched that book, by the way, just the other day. So if you look on this very Facebook or the Falco Canine Academy Facebook page, scroll down a little bit, you'll see that you can purchase that book. One of the problems we had when we first launched it, I accidentally clicked the black and white button in the product creation process, and so the colored pages turned out to be black and white. So that's why we had to relaunch it. So now it's all in full living color. All right, so let's get to what are some steps that people need to take, or you would suggest that they have for having a successful program like yours?
Yeah, so I just recently put together a report that's called the 7 Steps to Growing Your Humane Education Program. And like I was saying before, it's for those people who already have programs that are already happening and robust, and they want to take it to the next level. Those are wanting to start out or revive their previous programs. So I've been doing a couple of Facebook Live sessions myself, and so I will, we've done a couple so far, and we have some coming up next week as well. So let me give you in a nutshell some of the things that we've covered so far in those sessions. So one of the first, and these aren't sort of a chronological step or anything, but just a bunch of things that people can think about. The first one is entertain. And I know that as an educator, that was something that was always a little bit controversial when you talked about, as you're a teacher or a trainer, an educator, a facilitator, is it your role to entertain your participants or your students? And I would argue that it is because you've got to get their attention. And, so many humane education programs and the magazine that we're doing, as well as the report, is really focused on tweens. And so that's defined as kids between the ages of 7 and 12, because that's a really, really crucial age for kids. And they are so fascinated with animals at that age. They are so passionate about them. So it's a really great, target age to be looking at. And so, we are in today's age of technology, kids have so many things going on that are distracting to them that it's hard to get their attention, right? I mean, you've got kids at home, Andy, right? And
Yep.
My kids too. I've got an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. And so I know what it's like. They usually have some sort of screen or device in their hands. And so we've got to figure out ways to get their attention both online and offline. And so I think it's really crucial that we think in terms of how do we entertain in getting our messages across, right? And
yeah, it's important with just about any business today. If you're in business, even if you're in a nonprofit organization, if you're going to attract interest in what it is you're doing, some aspect of entertainment has to be a part of that, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Right. Yep. Right. For good or bad, that's the way it is, yep. Right? The second step that talk about in the report is, of course, educate, which is kind of like, duh, that's what we do. Yep. But I talk about, the characteristics that we know about tweens is that, they are trying to be independent. They're trying to be, they think they're grown up, but, as adults, we look at them and think, oh, well, they're not. But we have to come and talk to them in a way that, we're not talking down to them, we're not talking at them, but that we are, again, sort of dialoguing with them and finding out, in order to convey our messages, the humane education pieces that we need to convey, or we feel we need to convey to them, we need to first find out sort of where they're at, where are their values, where are their beliefs, those kinds of things. Because if we want to change behaviors for the better and help them become responsible pet owners in the now and in the future, then we really need to get into, well, where are they at and what do they think and believe at this point. And so it really is a two-way street, a dialogue. And so, I really talk about in the report about what are some of the ways that we can do that, again, both online and offline. So that's
in those beliefs is the issue of no-kill shelters and what happens to the dogs if we don't rescue and find adopters for them. Is that kind of the issues you're talking about, or just
I'm talking more that, no, because I think different organizations will have different missions, and that's up to the organization. And so that's not what I'm trying to educate kids about. More about how kids can be responsible pet owners, right? Perfect. And so what kind of things can they do to become responsible pet owners? If they're coming from a household where maybe the parents are still sort of in the old way of thinking, like, I think about when I grew up, my dad was I'm from Canada, and so my dad was from the prairies. So he came from Saskatchewan, and as far as he was concerned, all dogs, all animals are meant to be outside, right? Mm-hmm. So when we growing up and having dogs, we had to have him get over that ideal that dogs are meant to be outside all the time, right? So those kinds of things, or that staying and neutering your animals are actually healthy and good choices for them for many different reasons. So sort of those kind of beliefs and values is more what I'm referring to. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So that's the second of the 7 steps. And then we started to get into let's see, what were the next ones? We start to get into, the third one is engage. And so ways, again, that we can engage with kids online, offline, what speaks to them. And again, looking at really what are the characteristics of tweens. And, boys and girls are slightly different. Boys are typically more into sort of being competitive and, game playing. I know, that's what my boys are into, right? Yeah. So, so you want to sort of make things fun and game-like for them and competitive a little bit. So things like contests and things like that. Whereas girls may be a little bit more into sort of being part of the group and more, conformity and those kinds of things. Right. So kind of, again, contests can be used, but it's more, but maybe for girls it's more like polling and voting and things like that, kind of thing. So. Right. So looking again at what appeals to them at those age groups, right? Yep. So that's part of engaging. Yeah.
So you put this all in a report, and the URL that I put in the descriptor, is that one way of getting the whole report?
Absolutely. So you can get a copy of the free report that has all 7 steps in it, and you'll also be able to get a sneak peek, a demo of the magazine, because the magazine really, incorporates all of these steps to help you really make your humane education program a robust one.
Awesome. I have some more questions for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm so intrigued. I worked very closely with, we just happened to move out of our offices at the German Shepherd Rescue of Orange County. Not because we don't have a relationship. I just didn't need to pay 2 rents. And so, but I love the shelter. I love their dedication to the dogs that are, and regardless of if the dog has aggression or how unfortunately injured or sick the dogs were, they would take them in. Right. It's got to be a burden. What's the word I'm looking for? It's got to be difficult to afford to do that, to take in these dogs that have these huge medical issues, and the training that they would either, of course, they would ask us to help, and then, because it's a business, we have to charge a little bit for training these dogs. The numbers have to be huge for failure rate in regard to people who start a shelter and just can't keep it running. Do you have any statistics on that type of stuff?
I don't. That's a really good question. Yeah. I mean, and I think that, I don't know the failure rate, but you're right. It takes a lot to start up an organization. You need to have a lot of donors, usually donors behind you, unless you're set up as a municipal shelter. That's a whole other thing. But because then it's under taxpayer money, right? But for nonprofit shelters, rescue groups, maybe too, that are 501c3 organizations, it takes a tremendous amount of commitment and dedication and money to get things started. And oftentimes they'll start out as, completely voluntary organizations where everybody involved, there's no paid staff or very few paid staff members, and they're really reliant on volunteers. And that, which is great, but that's challenging. It has its own challenges, right? Yeah. And then it may then grow into something that's, a little more permanent and have, better funding. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the points I'm going to get to here with that, with that knowledge that it's difficult and very costly, having a program like this would be important, because you have to have something to build interest in what it is you're doing. Right. And starting with kids, I've learned probably mostly through Apple, the company Apple Computers, got Apple computers into the hands when they were to the kids when they were children, right? They really were strong in getting them into the elementary schools, really indoctrinating children into the Apple concept. And then they grew up, and then what kind of computers do they want? Apple computers. And so I think this really is, good on both levels. It's a way of gaining interest in what it is you're doing at your shelter and getting people involved, but you're starting with kids. And building that interest in shelters and rescues and that kind of stuff right away.
Absolutely. And for me, humane education programs are really, like I said, it's a way you're looking at your adopters, your donors, your volunteers, and your staff of tomorrow is really what you're doing. So you're investing in your future. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things I like seeing over there at the German Shepherd Rescue are the young people that are working, in the kennels, which is not an easy
Mm-hmm.
place to be, right? Cleaning those
Yeah.
kennels.
Right.
But they love the love for the dogs, and that,
Mm-hmm.
that at some point by taking care of them, they may find a forever home, I
Yeah.
think is the thing that draws them there. And it's, unbelievable, some of the dedicated people that I have there, because they always wonder what happened to that dog.
Yeah.
Is he going to stay in that home?
Yeah.
And they really get connected with those
Yes.
dogs as they work with them on a daily basis. So
Absolutely.
volunteering as a kennel person at a shelter is really, really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for any shelter, the biggest line item in the budget is staffing, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of people sort of donors will balk at that because they're like, oh, I want all my donation money to go straight to animal care. I don't want it to be going to the staff. Well, the staff are not bathing in gold bars, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Most of the staff at shelters, a lot of the frontline staff are minimum wage employees or just above minimum wage. You have a lot of, even at the executive director level and executive leadership level, senior management, they're not bringing home the bucks. They are there because it's a passion for them and they are committed to the cause. And but it still is the largest line item, again, because we do have things like laws in this country that say you do have to give at least minimum wage, and you do have to give overtime, and you do have to, for certain staff, have to give vacations and insurance and all those sorts of things, right? And so this was something that I had to really, when I was an executive director, I had to talk to my donors and also my staff about, because people would say, well, this isn't a business, it is a nonprofit, and so we are mission driven. Absolutely. But at the same time, it is a business because there's a lot of laws I have to follow as an executive director in order to pay you and keep us in business. There's licensing and there's all sorts of things, and that all costs money, right? And
Right.
And then you have with animal care, you, as you mentioned too, a lot of times there's medical expenses, which again is a huge cost. Bringing in behaviorist trainers, all those sorts of things. It all costs money, but and with animals, and the food, and you got to heat the place, and you got to have lights, and you've got to, there's a lot of things that go into taking care of the animals, and it's not like everybody can take Christmas Day off. You still have to have people going in there and taking those dogs out for walks, cleaning up after them, feeding them, making sure they're getting their medication if they need it, what have you, and the cats and what other animals as well. So it's very labor intensive, and so that really is the biggest line item. Yeah.
Can I go? I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum because we've been talking about kids a little bit here, but the other type of people, I guess that's okay to say, that I see at the German Shepherd Rescue are the senior citizens. There's a lot of seniors that, they're not working anymore, they were retired, and now they're just looking for something to do. How do you manage? I mean, this is a really broad question, but what's one of the things that comes to your mind first when you're thinking about managing seniors at a shelter?
Managing seniors. Let me think. So when I think about when I was at the shelter, those were some of the most dedicated volunteers. We had, and one person that comes to mind, she's passed away now, but she volunteered for over 20 years. She was a retired school teacher, and she was our humane educator for over 20 years as a volunteer. Did amazing stuff, still had all of her connections in the school, so she'd go out and meet with those school kids. Everybody knew her. She was known as Mrs. A. Everybody loved her, and she saw generations of kids grow up and was, then going into the school systems and teaching their kids and even some of their grandkids, right? So she was well known in our community and just so dedicated. We have other volunteers, I remember, who, again, a lot of retired school teachers who love to get involved and just come in and be with the animals and walk them and go in and cuddle the cats and, what have you. And so definitely some of our best volunteers. You want to be able to, as far as managing them, I think you just want to appreciate them, so show them how you appreciate them. Yeah.
Well, the one thing that I think about is that the senior, like 3 or 4 seniors, could really kind of sink their teeth into this Shelter Kids Club program, and they could manage what needs to happen. Putting the birthday parties together, taking pictures, making sure the pictures get onto the magazine, all that kind of stuff. That would be a really great project for them. Because one aspect that I think about with the seniors, because I see them with these big German Shepherds sometimes, I go, oh my gosh.
Yeah. You take it for a walk, right? Yeah.
I hope everything's going to be okay. So, but I see this is a great project for them, especially the educators, what you were talking about, because I do think that now that you mentioned it, I think there are a few people, I remember them saying that they were, former teachers, principals, and that kind of stuff, in that kind of environment. How much work does it take to maintain this Shelter Kids Club program for an organization? Do they have to be, graphics editors and all that kind of stuff?
No, we do all of that for them. So nice. It's a really, it's a done for you kind of deal. So the only things we ask, so in the beginning, when we bring an organization on board, we find out, things like, what kind of events do you do for kids, and do you have, because some organizations will have like a little, could be a little thrift shop that they use as a way to make funds, or they could have like a little store, little shop in their shelter. Those are usually kind of, shelters that are a little bit bigger. And so, if they want to be able to say, hey, we want to put like a 10% off coupon in the magazine or something to go to our store, those kinds of things, right? So if you have anything, or if you want to promote your birthday program some more to get, more kids using them, things like that, as well as just, every time leading up to an issue, we want to be able to get those new pictures that you've had of kids coming in and making donations and adopting and, doing fun things for you. We want to have, and then, like I said, the information about any upcoming events for that next time period. So it's just, other than that, we do the rest for you.
Wow, that's awesome.
Now, and that's not to say that there's other things that you can, if you have the time or the available resources to give to us as well. So, for example, we have upcoming in the spring, we'll have an issue that has to do with kittens. Kitten season comes around in the spring, right? So we have our kitten issue, and in there we've put in some video of some, cats playing with some DIY kind of toys, because we have a little article on some things. Here's kids you can, create yourselves that cost little to no money, that cats can play with, kind of thing, right? And so we have a little video of cats playing with them. So if they have some footage of, somebody just with their camera or something of some cats playing at the shelter, then send that to us and we'll put it in the magazine.
Wow,
so highly
cool.
Customizable that way.
Yeah, you gave me a great idea for the German Shepherd Rescue, is that they have a comedy night, which they use to raise money. They have a wine tasting event they do.
Yeah.
They have, special events. They rescue dogs from a city out here called Devore. They are all part of a puppy mill type of situation, and then took all those dogs in, something like 30 dogs. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And so they had a special event where they had a red carpet, where they walked all these dogs down a red carpet. I mean, they have so many events, and I just see so much potential with a magazine like this. Is awesome.
Absolutely. And the other thing I should mention, is I did mention this before, is that the organizations too can decide if they want to distribute the magazine free of charge for kids, or if they want to have like a membership fee. So it could be, $10, $15, $20 a year or something. And so we set up the membership site for the organization. I think I mentioned that part before, and it links to the website. And so when we set that up for each organization, we ask them, do you want this to be a paid membership, or do you want this distributed free of charge? And so, they can decide whether they want to have that as a revenue stream for them too. So.
Oh, well, you covered it all.
Yeah.
All right. So again, the URL that they want to go to, or need to go to, or whatever we want, we just want them to click on it and get in. They can get the free report, and they can also find out more about being involved in the Shelter Kids Club program.
Absolutely.
and how to
Absolutely.
get
So
hold of you.
www.shelterkids.club.
All right. That's
Yeah,
that's awesome. That URL is perfect. That
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. All right. Well, great. Did I miss anything, Barbara, that you wanted to mention that I didn't ask you about?
I don't think so. I was just really glad to hear the dog news is coming back because I missed it. I was going to ask you what happened.
Well, it's challenging. At some point, the life changes. I had a few life changes happen, and
Mhm.
they're occurring, and so I had to handle that on top
Yeah.
of business and relocating and all that kind of stuff. So it was just, sometimes life gets in the way, and I wanted to make sure and take a step back, because sometimes we can just get doing stuff and become robotic about it. But I
Yeah.
really wanted to take a step back because there's so much more new technology also that's become available to us and to me. And so I want to make sure and use the full power of the technology to be able to bring good content to people. So I'm glad that
Awesome.
you liked it, because yes,
Yeah.
it'll be coming back, and it may not look that much different, but it'll look a little bit different, and we're going to have some other stuff that will go along with it also. So cool. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
We'll
Absolutely.
make Shelter Kids Club program definitely one of the sponsors that we'll mention when we
Yeah.
come back.
Awesome.
All right, Barbara.
All right. Well,
Glad
thank
you
you.
had the time to join us. Good luck with the launch, I'll make sure and share this with all the appropriate sites that like to watch what we're doing here.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye to New York. Take care.
Bye. Bye.